This is Maureen Connell. I am going to walk you through my best evidence for design thinking mindset, empathy fueled design process, network, and high and low tech tools. Protocols and strategies will be discussed at a later date once I've completed that piece. So, to start out, for design thinking mindset, I'm going to show you my 3 pieces of evidence for that. So to start out, I have as my first one this design sprint that we completed early in the class. So this exemplifies how I use the design thinking process to come up with these creations. And I started out by gaining empathy by understanding my classmates' perspective through an empathy inventory and just kind of how they learn and how they take in information. And then I, of course, moved through the process to prototyping and designing and refining as I went. So these kind of really show how I struggled through that process. I also interviewed my son to help me gain his perspective. He was helpful in giving me some additional information of a viewer or user. All right, so going back, I'm going to go to Best Evidence 2. And for this evidence of the design thinking process, or mindset, I should say, this shows how I use the design thinking mindset to explore my pantry and kind of quickly, in that kind of speed prototyping that we've talked about, come up with a response to the challenge of pantrying the process. And I thought about something that would be visually appealing to me, but hopefully to others. I think of my kids and their interest in sweet things. And I was just trying to show the process in a unique and interesting way. So I just kind of quickly worked through that on 2 levels, both on the level of trying to use the design thinking mindset, but also to show the design thinking mindset by showing how it's important to be open and interested and willing to try things and lean into the squish. All right, and then for Best Evidence 3, let's go here. This design thinking mindset piece of evidence is a recent post, my most recent blog post, and it's showing my work. And I feel like this just shows how I did some rapid work, especially in this most recent 7-day sprint of showing our work. How I, kind of came up with some ideas by quickly brainstorming, and I thought about the students that I'm working with and how the students have been excited to create and solve problems, and thinking about the quotes that I've heard students say kind of in an offhanded way to consider the empathy piece. And then just, again, overall kind of quickly showing my work without worrying too much about what it looks like, and being open and willing to put it out there and then refine as I go. All right, so going back to evidence 1, considering empathy and how I've used that throughout this class. Let's go back to my blog. And so one big piece of evidence early in the course I used was an empathy inventory to help me design my user manual. And so that was a piece of evidence that I wanted to share, since that was me really trying to get to know my classmates and understanding their perspectives and how they learn and take in information before I create my user manual. Okay, and then best evidence 2. This is in the more recent design challenge that we've been working through, just trying to understand the perspective of some of the users at my school by exploring different scenarios and really kind of thinking through the bigger picture that I sometimes miss as a detail-oriented person, and kind of how overall it will affect people at the school where I work, especially with this journey map at the end. So that helped me really try to put myself in other people's shoes. And then evidence 3. I feel like this, what I consider a thoughtful prototype, and then I've even since revised it based on feedback, really helpful feedback that helped me kind of think through in more detail. I thought the feedback about me not capitalizing the use of the word you, Y-O-U, was really important to consider, and reminded me how important that empathy piece is. Just making sure I'm kind of being very respectful and considerate and open, and not in any way attacking or aggressive in my visuals, in my use of language, in my use of words on a page. So I think overall I really am trying to share knowledge in a kind and considerate way. All right, going back, I'm going to jump back to best evidence number 1. And for network, I can't really show this because where I am, I can only get to TweetDeck. But Twitter, so I'll show TweetDeck. Twitter has been a neat way for me to network, and it was new to me, but it's been a great way. For example, I put out recently to some people I've met in my newly developing PLN, ideas for technology and equipment that might be helpful in the Innovation Center. I've also just learned a lot from the different Twitter chats that I've taken part in. I've taken part in 2 this fall. So that has been a great new way of networking. All right, going back, best evidence 2, Medium. That was also new to me. So just in general, this is just that show your work blog, but just in general, this forum for communicating and connecting. I've participated, I guess, 19 times it shows. So kind of putting myself out there and learning from others and hearing others' comments, and has been really a neat way to connect. And then my last piece of evidence for that are professional development opportunities I've tried to take advantage of, and school visits that I did earlier this fall. So I went to MIT for 2 different workshops, and these are just some photos I just wanted to show how I got out there and networked. And I met some awesome people at that workshop. I'm going to continue connecting with the organizer of that workshop to maybe do some work up here in Aroostook County with her. And then I also visited 2 schools in Portland. So this is some ideas I got for how to organize space, different ways they're integrating making into their curriculum in a very meaningful and thoughtful way. And so I connected and networked that way. All right, and then lastly, going back to evidence 1, for high and low tech tools. So I feel like this really showed how I've explored various types of technology. First of all, just the actual use of Medium is new to me, as I already mentioned. This is a recording I created using CoSpaces, and that was completely new to me, and just a way for me to think about empathy, where this just handwritten brainstorm is a very low-tech example. working with students, trying both very high-tech things like Spheros, as well as very low-tech making activities like these Boo Radley houses and spaghetti and marshmallow design challenges. So those are some examples of that. High and low-tech exploration in my learning and in my teaching. And then this is another example of a low-tech use of just basic coloring. And it was actually really fun to do this with my daughter, and she came up with ideas I wouldn't have even thought of. So that low-tech collaboration is another piece that has been really important and helpful for me to remember how useful that can be. And then the last piece of evidence is going back to that pantry, the process. I was just talking to a teacher today about this kind of approach to ideating and just taking basic things like things from a pantry and coming up with ideas just using basic tools. And I want to keep coming back to that no matter what the challenge is for students, whether it is a high-tech or a low-tech design challenge. Ultimately, just integrating low-tech opportunities in, especially in the ideating phase. I think that it is really a good way to brainstorm and come up with ideas for writing or creating or building something with technology. So that is my evidence and my rationale for each of the 4 outcomes that I am tackling in this screencast. And as I mentioned, I will explain more about protocols and strategies in my digital portfolio coming up in a week or 2. Thank you.